Hello and welcome to this video presented by Advanced Data Business Systems. ADBS has been developing enterprise applications since 1981 for small to large organizations. This is the ADS video series and I am Thomas Wade Gonder.
I will be presenting this video on how locks work in general. Next we will cover the specifics for locks in forms and review the procedures that handle locking for the form. Locks are used to inhibit multiple users or jobs from stomping all over the data in an uncontrolled fashion. Imagine two users editing the same customer record at the same time. Access has some locking features, but they are primitive and not proactive. In the ADS, we will remedy that. Here are the topics that we will be discussing. I won't read them all to you. You can pause if you want. Let's open up my development database. Double click. I'm going to go ahead and log in as myself. Enter, enter, enter. Each application module has its own lock table. Let's look at the lock tables by filtering with the word lock. Go to search, lock, and we have 4 different lock tables. Video 1015 covers naming conventions for objects and variables in the ADS, and Video 1007 gets into more depth on application modules. I'll do a quick explanation of what we see here in the table names. So we see that all of these tables begin with the TBLC. That stands for table, C is for control. I use the underscore character to separate things out because I need to parse those. And the numbers that we see, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 3 is for the application development system, or the ADS. 4 is for the application universal module, which is where the entity form sits. 5 is for the system administrator, and 6 is the data administrator. And then they all finish with the word lock. Let's go ahead and open up the one for the application universal module. Oh, a quick moment on application modules. There are a lot of different modules that one can create. Like here I have 12, which is my human resources module. I don't want to distribute those to all the users, and you won't find that in the demo file that I distribute. But you will get the 3 and the 4 and the 5 and the 6, because those are the core elements of the ADS. Also, you'll see that some have just table C, as I mentioned a moment ago. There's a fair amount of different control tables. And you'll also find TBLU, which is a lookup table, and very specifically in that is an important helper table called the table U lookup for element, but that's for another video. Alright, back to the locks. I'm going to go ahead and filter out again. Lock. Here is the lock table for application universal, and you can see that some records are already here. We can see that I have an actual lock set for a table and a record. I also have 3 other locks that are for testing. If they have a small t in front, that stands for testing, another one of my naming conventions. Let's go ahead and take off this T, the little T right there, on table, save it. Now I've got the entity table locked. When it has a 0, it's not any specific record. It's like a master lock for the entire entity table. Let's go ahead, minimize this, and let's try running the application universal, the entity form. Let's click on previous for my test record Zelma, and let's go ahead and edit her. We can see on this message number 11 the table is locked, blah blah blah. But basically we just set a test lock and we can't get into editing it. If I try to edit, I'm typing in like the letter G and nothing happens. Remember, in my forms, when you're editing, these fields go green, and the one that you're actually entering in will be a goldenrod color. Let's just set it aside. Let's go back into the lock table and put a T lowercase t on the front of that lock. It basically makes it unenabled. Minimize. Now let's try editing again. Voila! Now we can edit. And if I wanted to, I could type in GGGG on Zelma's name. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to exit out. And that's a quick overview of how a lock should work for a form. I restarted the database, and what I'm going to do now is minimize the menus, and I'm going to shrink down some of the noise. What we just saw a minute ago was a way to lock an entire table. What that means is, remember, we can click on next and then enter, enter, enter. None of these records could have been edited. They were all locked out because the table was locked. I'm going to double click on previous. That gets me back to the first record in the set. I'm going to go previous again to get to Zelma. If I edit Zelma, and we go into here and do F5, we can see that a lock's been set for Zelma. Notice that while I'm editing, all of the text boxes go to green and my related forms go disabled. You can't edit in any of the related forms or even preview them while you're busy editing in the main form for a record. Let's go ahead and type in X and then exit. Remember, a moment ago we saw that a lock was set and now it's deleted. Click on this form, doing F5, that lock disappears. Let's go into the personal information form. That's the new one that I'm working on. This is why we have related forms. You can see that there's a whole lot of data I might want to have on a particular person, like their biometric information and sizes, things like that. And that's only one of the subforms that I have here. I'm going to have information for an organization and financial information for a person or an organization. So it's going to be fairly complicated when I finish. So I was just getting to the point of testing, are my locks working? So this is the command button to edit for the main form. This is a command button for the subform, which is included in this boxed area. So let's go back down and let's click on this edit. And let's go back into and press F5, and we can see that two locks are being set. One lock for the personal information record that I'm in. Let's scroll up. There's the personal information record that I'm in. And then I also have a lock for the 1084 for the entity itself. So the entity is locked while I'm working in the personal information form. And they're two different tables. You can tell that by the names. Close the form. Both of the locks were undone. What's going on behind the scenes? Well, let's clear out this area over here and let's get down into two modules. I've got a universal module. There's its name, Mod 3 Universal. It's universal for the developers. Let's go ahead and just search for locks and do F-lock, because one of my naming conventions is if it's a function, put an F on the front, and we can see, cancel that out, that I have a function F-lock, and it's a lot of information here, but we can scroll down and see that there's quite a bit of code going on in there. And we also have an S-lock, which is pretty simple. All it does is an SQL insert, and it's inserting into that table, and it knows what table to insert. Remember, we have at least 4 going on here now. If we had 10 other application modules, we would have 10 other lock tables. So it's all part of the template. And close that down, and I'm going to bring up, so this is the helper module for forms, and I'm going to search for F-lock. Here's a subroutine that I have for forms for locking the set, and it's in the helper routine. And this one is kind of big. There's a lot of things that have to be done in addition to the helper module that's in Universal to get locks actually set. And then we have the lock release. So we can see there's quite a bit of code going on. I took a little break from recording this video to clean up some things that I saw in the form. And so now we're back ready with the entity form for Zelma. I'm ready to do some testing of the locks in the subform. So I'm going to click on Personal, and that gets us into the personal information form. As you recall, this is the main form and the subform. So I'm going to scroll down and get ready to click on Edit for the subform. But first I'm going to click in here in the locks, do F5, confirm that the only thing I have in the table are the 3 test locks, so there aren't any active ones. I'm going to click on Edit here in the subform. It goes green. I'm going to click into the locks and see that I have a lock for the personal information. But as we saw in the main form, I should also have a lock for the entity form, and I don't see that here. So this subform I copied over from a template. I either, when I'm creating a new form, I copy over from a template or use a form that's very similar to what I want and just make the modifications there. So if I'm copying from the template, sometimes I haven't done something. So let's go take a look at the basic code where these locks get set for this particular subform. So here we are in the VBA editor for the class module for the form for the personal information subform, and this is kind of my standard heading. I'm going to scroll down into the open form area, and I'm scrolling down looking for associated records. So this is where the data gets set for up to 2 different associated records. Well, I can see they're all set to null. That's not good, or at least it wouldn't set any locks. So what I'm going to do is go open up the module for the main form, double click on it, scroll down again till we get to the associated records, and I can see that I've set my F control array to 3 different variables. So I'm just going to copy those, Control C, go back to the subform class module, click on that line, Control V to paste it in. Now I want to double check that everything is the same in a subform as far as these variables go. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here. I'm going to save it, Control S to save this. Now I'm going to minimize this and get back to our form. I'm going to close out of this form, start it up again. Let's check on the locks. I have a lock that's still set in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'm just going to highlight that row and delete it. Tells me I'm going to delete the record. It's something I've got to check into, and we will. Alright, so click on Personal again. The VBA code comes up. Let's see what we got in these 3 different variables. So I'm setting the table control for the application universal lock. Alright, that's good. That's the table I want to be in. Now let's go down here. We want to set the entity table, and the final piece of information is what record are we going to lock, and I know that 1084 is for the entity because I think 2001 is for the personal information record. So it looks like we got everything working good. So we can take out that breakpoint, click on it, do F5, and we should have our form. Let's check on the locks. Again, nothing's locked. Let's scroll down, start editing on the subform, go to the locks, do F5. So we have a lock on the entity table for Zelma, and we have a lock on the personal information table for the record that we're working in. If we scroll up here, we can see those two different IDs. There's the one for the personal information table, and here's the key for the primary ID of the entity table. Okay, looking good. So I've confirmed at this point that I have the locks being set. Let's go into personal information. Let's scroll down. I want to make sure that the locks are getting undone under two different circumstances. If I exit out of a record in the subform, and if I save the record in the subform. So let's go ahead and click on Edit, scroll up. Let's change this Martinez 16 to a 17. Hit Tab. Let's see if we have some locks set. We do. We've got the two locks set. So now I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to exit out. And we can see that the two locks got deleted. Now I'm going to click on Edit again. Click in here. We've got the two locks set again. I'm going to scroll up and change this to a 7. Tab. Scroll down and click on Save. Let's go in here, do F5. The two locks are still set. They should be undone after a save. And come to think of it, this Save button should change colors after I click Save. So let's scroll up into the status area for the subform. That's different than the status area for the main form, and see what's going on here. We've got some things going on. The record has changed. There's some before updates, validate entries, but I don't see a Save button. If I click on, we're at 58. If I go down here and click on Save, come back up, I'm still at 58. Some code should have run when I clicked on the Save button, and it didn't. I think I know why. Because when I created this subform, I used my template, and I copied a Save button into the footer. And I'm going to bet that the event isn't activating. What we're going to have to do first is escape out of here, and then close down the form. That did an undo. Let's go check our locks. They're still set. We know they shouldn't be, so let's just go ahead and blow them away. And let's get into the subform designer. Let's scroll down. Notice how most everything is just white, but when we run the form, it's got colors filled in. Click on the Save button, look at its properties on the on-click. There's nothing there. Click on the three little buttons. So yeah, there is a procedure there now. Let's go ahead and minimize this. Let's close it. It should want to save it. We'll say yes. Let's check on our locks. There's still nothing there. Click on Personal. Scroll down. Edit. Lock should be set. Go up. Change the 6 to a 7. Tab. Scroll down. Save. The color did change like I thought. Go up into the status area and probably scroll down here a little bit. We'll find the Save click. There it is. The Save click was 29. So a few procedures have run after that to get up to 40. And let's go check on our locks. They look deleted. Do F5. They are indeed gone. We're good. So that ends this particular part of the demonstration. The only thing left to do is review some of the related videos. This 1001 can help you understand related forms a little bit better if you don't understand the purpose of them. We talked a little bit about application modules, which is the developer, application universal, system administrator, and data administrator. And of course, there's the human resources and whatever applications you would happen to create. I will be making a video on naming conventions for the database objects, and another one for the variables, so you can understand why you're seeing the names that you are. And also there's a video on interpreting a form status. We looked at that a little bit in this video, and we solved the save problem by seeing in the status area that that procedure wasn't actually running. This video goes over that in a little bit better detail and how to turn on the display of the procedures that are running as they process.